Hi. This is Tom Hart from SAW.
Yeah, and this is Justine Mara Andersen. I'm one of the teachers at SAW. And what we're looking at here are basically inks. We'll probably talk a little bit about drawing as well, but we're going to be talking a bit about inks of some of the great inkers, some of the great artists in comics, particularly some of the classics. This is Dan Adkins, who, perhaps wasn't as celebrated as some other artists because I think his style was so straightforward, but he was really a terrific craftsman. And I think when we look later at Alex Raymond and all that kind of stuff, you're going to really see where Dan came from. But a little personal story about Dan's inks that I have, because Dan was one of my mentors. And Dan unfortunately died recently. But Dan would actually burn the ends of his brushes. He would get a brand new Winsor Newton brush, get a lighter, and bring the brush close to the flame but not touch it to burn the point off of it a little bit. And he sent me in the mail two brand new Winsor Newton brushes, one burned and one unburned. And I thought, I can't draw without the point. So he did all this by, pulling the point off of that a little bit. And you were obsessed more with the details in this, right?
Oh, I just love the abstract details. I like how the lines come together in the background. I also love this stuff going on. I also like looking at paper, and I like seeing all the paste ups and seeing where things were pasted over and wondering in some cases why and what's going on. But I love these shapes. I love the big white here that later
The
he
big
drew.
cigar.
Yeah, that he later drew in.
It's also classic clean comics. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are looking at
This is Alex Raymond, Jungle
Alex
Jim,
Raymond, right.
and Flash Gordon on the bottom.
I was thinking, I guess Dan Adkins, I was thinking more Burne Hogarth than Alex Raymond, although I'm sure he loved Alex Raymond too. And I noticed here, terrific, look at the concentric circles here, which by the way are going to be repeating down here and over here. But these are concentric circles in a cave, and these are the concentric circles being inked in the water, how they're inked differently. And notice that the water itself is not inked the same way all the way through. You've got the ripple inking here, and then you've got dark waves here, and then you've got where it opens up back here, and then, there's the dark shadow here. And notice how differently the water is rendered over here too. People always ask me simple questions with inking, like, how do you ink water?
Here's 5 different ways.
Here's 10 different solutions in one 3-strip, like this is rendered differently this is all different ways of rendering water. This is different ways of rendering water. This is different ways of rendering water. And students want like a simple, quick answer, and so often there isn't one. I love down here how so many of these inking lines are all pushing the action forward. Notice this shadow, all this here, and I've kind of stolen the show and talked too much. So Tom, what are your observations?
No, I don't. No, I'm too in awe of Raymond to be able to talk about it sensibly. I just love looking at it, and I like getting your expertise about it.
Yes, I guess that's one of the big questions. One of the big things in teaching is that students ask simple questions. Here's a good example. How do you draw shadows on faces? Okay, first of all, learn to draw faces. Second of all, learn how light and shadow works. Then study people who know how to put light and shadow on faces. Watch a lot of film noir. They want a simple answer, and there is no simple answer. The answer is work your ass off without any expectation of being rewarded. That's the answer.
There's a Frazetta strip coming up. Here it is, actually. That is about shadows on faces, and we can look at that there, or you can start from pulling back.
Yeah, I love this sort of 50s, 60s style. I mean, this is kind of like, it makes me think of Mad Men, even though they weren't doing cartoons and comics. But I love how over here he uses the shading around the eyes to give you a sense of madness, as well as down the nose. But I also just love these lines around the crotch. Notice how heavy the lines are down here, and then shaded upward. So many of my students, they don't know where to put the heavy lines and where to put the light lines. They see heavy lines, they see light lines, and they don't know where to place them or why. But lines will define light, weight, volume, and distance. And notice also how much gestalt he's using. See, the line is broken.
Yeah.
Your eye will create that as a complete line all the way through, but that gives you like a highlight that also lightens things up here. And then look at the crazy
I was going to
loose
mention that.
wiggling down here.
And
I mean, that's so amazing.
And the shadow of the hand is
Yeah.
pretty quick and claw-like, you know. Oops.
So then moving on to a similar image, unless Tom's got more to say, this is Jose Gonzalez, which is really nothing like Frazetta, but I love it because it shares in that sort of super stylish quality. And this, again, looks like, I'm a little obsessed with Mad Men now because I just watched it, but this reminds me of all that too, you know. And what I love about this is the combination of extreme tightness and extreme looseness, because everything is perfectly composed, perfectly drawn, and then loosely applied.
Yeah.
And look at the craziness down here.
Oh yeah.
It's
oh
just,
my.
You know,
wow.
it's like it's almost completely abstract. It doesn't really even define hardly anything, but he's so good and he's so confident that you know what that is.
You know who did that too was Hugo Pratt. We should bring some Pratt in.
You were going to say something before I went.
Well, I was going to point out some of the craziness up here, which is mostly just background stuff in here too.
Yeah.
But that is the great place to point it out.
You know, I love when things break down to abstraction, but there's no doubt about what it is. You know, I mean, that's a real master. I mean, that's serious looseness, and we're going to see more of that later. Well, you know, I absolutely love what Watterson brought to comics. You know, we'd never seen lines quite like this before.
Yeah.
All the gestalt on the top of Calvin's head, the heavy lines in all the right places. I mean, if you want to be a cartoonist, you should be studying Schultz. You should be studying Bill Watterson. You know, he's one of those modern people that I absolutely adore. The looseness is just terrific. Through here, all this action up here is great, you know. Look at this nice fat chubby cheek, which gives you that kid thing, you know, that fat chubby cheek. Anyway, this is Jeff Jones or Jeffrey Catherine Jones.
Zoom up to the top.
Now again, Jeff was one of my mentors and teachers, and I know that Jeff did. At least from what I read, Jeff and I didn't talk about this in particular, but Jeff inked Idol with a brush, and you can tell there's a real sensuality. Look how kind of wet and fluid, you know, the ink is applied, how wet and fluid all the lines are.
Yeah, and all the anatomy and the
Yeah, and look at the sensuality of how these lines undulate from thick to thin, thick to thin, thick to thin, and then look how lightly it's rendered in here, which, you know, the light source there confuses me just a little bit, but
well, he can, you know, they can get away with that.
Yeah, when you're that good, you can get away with it. Notice also, we're going to look at more Jones. Notice how well contained the hair is. It's still sort of abstract and expressionist, but when you get to the next page,
coming up.
Look at this. Again, like we talked about before, we know this is hair, but it's broken down into total abstraction.
And this is Image, and this is pen.
Right.
And
so
it's
now,
maybe 10 years
this
later.
is Image, and this is Jeff Jones inking with a pen, because Jeff wanted the feel of the nib hitting the page, and I think that's why a lot of people that prefer pen over brush, because they want that pushback.
That's what I like.
Yeah,
but
I
know
like
Jones.
I'm addicted to the brush. So,
wow.
But you know, look at how he.
And it's so different. The last one was fleshier, and this is bonier. You know, you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are bonier.
Yeah.
Look at the splatter
and
here.
Squiggle. Oh wow.
You know, probably based on the tool. Everyone gets really touchy if you don't call Jeff she, but I knew Jeff, and Jeff didn't care. Jeff was one of those people that, you know, it was irrelevant whether you use one pronoun or the other. But anyway, so yeah, okay, so here we are with Burne Hogarth, and this is the one that reminds me so much of what Dan Adkins was all about. You know, that super clean, frankly, really very tight. There's really tight. Scarcely a moment of looseness on this entire page.
And there's traditional comic inking feathering that you see there and here and all over the place.
And weren't there some simple, like, the boldness of that great squid tentacle is absolutely fantastic, you know. But look how tight this body is. I mean, it almost looks like it's carved in stone, you know. This is terrific down in here. Notice how he's got this like nice mix of black and white that really pops, because you've got a lot of white and a lot of black, and then there's a lot of white around it and a lot of black behind it. That's why that pops. You've got this white around here, this black back here, and then the black and white together. In color, they would call that like simultaneous contrast, when you use opposites on the color wheel. So when you get your whites and blacks densely combined together like that, they're going to vibrate.
I love this drawing. That Tarzan in the water.
Terrific.
That's just wonderful.
And again, in answer to the question, how do you draw water? Well, how many different ways is water inked here? How many different ways is it drawn here?